Hey guys, Bam here. So today I want to talk about something really important, in my opinion, is picking up the right league starter for you. So from what I've seen, a lot of people chooses a build and then they start their league with it and they do not enjoy it or simply cannot get it to whatever the content creator suggested it would be. So they reroll. And this is the worst thing that you can actually do. Rerolling the A character on league start is a huge loss because the first few days really matter the most. This is where most of the stuff is worth a lot compared to the general economy. It's kind of a rat race, so you want to make sure you're not losing your time. In this video, I'll explain some of the stuff you want to look for to be able to pick the right league starter for you. First, if you're picking up a league starter from a content creator, make sure you pick one from someone you actually trust. There's a lot of Path of Exile content, and sometimes might be a build that's super hype for some reason, but maybe the numbers are lying, or maybe stuff like that, or maybe it's someone you never heard about. Be careful with this. That includes me. I'm just a small YouTuber, so like, don't follow blindly what I say. Try to search if it's the right build, if it's actually a good build, whoever it is, and yeah. So pick up one that you think is actually what the content creator is talking about. Because the worst thing you could do is actually pick up a build that no longer works for the patch. So that's a big one. Maybe you picked up something that was from 2 patches ago or something like that, and some of the changes to item balances or classes or anything actually swap the old archetype around and is no longer viable. So make sure the build you're trying to make is valid in 324. But if you're not picking someone else build from a content creator or from any website and you're trying to do your own build, make sure you put on some practice and test the build because yeah, I mean, if you want to have a good league start, if you don't care about the currency or anything, I mean, to each his own. You can start with whatever and see what comes up with it, which is fine. Like as I said, whatever you enjoy is perfect for you. But if you want to have a lot of currency and actually be able to have access to everything you want to make sure you either practice the build that you're about to start with, or, as I said, pick from someone you trust as a content creator. Another important thing is that some people do not enjoy some type of plays. For example, I do not like playing with minions, so I will not be starting a minion build no matter what happens. So this is the same for, let's say, melee or mine, as I am currently starting with, or traps, or sometimes, or totems. Maybe sometimes the archetype doesn't fit the way you like to play. So make sure you keep that in mind because sometimes it will be a clash between how you enjoy the game and how the build actually works. With that being said, though, maybe you can try some new stuff. Sometimes, like, I had a bunch of comments of people saying they never played with mines, but they will try this league, or they have tried simulating a league starter, and they actually enjoyed it while they never played it before. So sometimes it can happen that you actually discover something new and that you enjoy. Alright, another important point is that you pick the right content for the build. So sometimes the content creator will be creating a build that's an all-around good character, so it can do pretty much everything. But most of the time what will happen is that that character is better at, let's say, mapping, or at doing heist, or at doing bosses and stuff like that. So if you're just grabbing that character and you're not taking that into account, maybe you will have a bad league start because you have to check that out. What is the build trend and the build weakness? A good example is Captain Lance. I know right now is trying to do a league starter that's good at Sanctum. Well, if you pick up his league starter, which by the way I really like Captain Lance, and he does really good builds. But if you pick up his league starter and maybe you try to boss with it, well, you might die a bunch because the character is not meant to be a bosser. It's meant to be a sanctum runner. and then maybe he moves on to something else. So make sure you actually do what's best for the character if you want to maximize the profit out of it. If you want a boss, it's fine, but don't pick a Sanctum Runner. If you want a map, it's fine, but don't pick up a boss killer. As I said, some league starters have a good all-around stuff, but there's always some strength and some weakness. Take that into account before going with the build. For example, my Exsanguinate Miner is a super good mapper. It's extremely quick to map, but at first it lacks single target DPS. If you want to do my build, it's fine, but don't expect it to be the best boss killer. Next is, does the build require a lot of uniques? So if the build requires a lot of uniques, are those uniques really common or they're super rare? What rarity is it? Because if it's a, I go to the extreme, if it's a league starter that requires a mage blood to actually get online, well, of course it's not gonna work because mage blood is one of the most sought after uniques. So you already know that that's garbage. It's not gonna work at first, right? Aside of that, does it require like 6, 7 uniques? Okay, what are the price of those uniques? Are they all one chaos uniques? Well, that's fine. Or is it a bunch of like couple of divines or tier 1 or tier 2 rarity items? And then without those uniques the build doesn't work? Well, of course that's gonna be a bad league start. Or is it just a couple of uniques that are super cheap and super common early league? Well, it's gonna be so useful to know that information ahead. And also, sometimes it can actually work for you if you can get currency without actually mapping. Let's say, for example, if you're someone who crafts a lot and make most of your currency with it, well, you can just stay in your hideout and just buy materials and craft a lot of stuff. And then once you have enough currency to buy those uniques, you can start getting that build online. So you have to know who you are as a player too. If those items are a high price at league start, I would suggest not touching that league starter. And of course, items fluctuate in price within a league and from different leagues too. Yeah, I'll show you what I mean by cheap uniques against high price uniques. So here's a couple of examples. So I'll pick the one I picked for my league starter. So Hymn Sorrows or a pair of gloves. As you can see, they are on league start. They were 1 chaos, and throughout all the league, they were 1 chaos. Now someone probably did some price manipulation, just like yesterday or something. But you can see this is always affordable, and the rarity on it is super low. So even though someone tried to price fix it, they would come up a bunch again because it's so common as an item that no matter what happens, you will always have access to it. Alright, next, another one that's usually super cheap too is Erithros. So normally on Bow League Start, this is a pretty good item because it gives you level 30 precision, and also it has no reservation on it. Plus your bow attacks have culling strike, so you don't have to worry about culling strike. So this is a good league starter item, and as you can see, it's unless like on day 1 it was 15 chaos, but then it was 2 chaos all league long. Of course, some mods may vary the price of it. So as you can see, the global crit multi goes from 25 to 60. But if you just want the item, you will be able to get it no matter what. So this is a good example of another cheap one. Now for the other ones. Let's say someone says for a league starter, they need the Irakias dance, okay? Which is a cheap item now, like maybe it goes up, it's going up in price to a divine or something like that. But like 20 chaos is fine, but this is, as you can see, like 3 weeks into the league. And early league, this is like insanely high price because it's a tier 0 rarity. So it's super rare as an item. So if someone's building a league starter using this and it needs that item, well, of course, it's not going to work, right? It needs to have something as a placeholder before you get this item. Another one is, let's say the build you're filling says it needs a squire before doing something. Well, if you look at it, like the squire was like 3300 chaos at first. So yeah, there's no way you can make that currency if the build doesn't work without that item. So just keep an eye out for those things. If you want to see the price of the items for yourself, just use PoE Ninja and you can check the price from like the whole league, and that way you know what what should be the price. Of course, it changes from leagues to leagues, and also within the league, the price will fluctuate, but it's a good indication of what will come up with within the future. Alright, next we have, does the build require a lot of crafting? And if so, do you know how to craft those pieces? So sometimes the build will require super generic items, like let's say just a couple of pieces of armor with resistance or some attributes, and you can get them pretty easy, right? But if it requires a lot of crafting of very specific items, and you don't know how to craft those, well, you have two ways you can go about it. Either the content creator actually gave you a step-by-step guide on how to craft it and you're fine, or you have to rely on the trade website. And what happens is that the more specific the item is, the higher price it will be. So yeah, keep that in mind. Using just rares is normally better, but you have to be able to have access to those rares. So as I said, either you know how to craft those, there's a build guide on how to craft those, or you know how to make enough currency to buy those off the trade website. What I always suggest is crafting them yourself, but sometimes people do not enjoy craft, and I respect that, so you can just buy it on the trade website. But does your build work without those specific rares? And if not, then you know that it's not a good league starter. If it does just gets better once you get those items, well then it's fine. Last but not least, are you having fun? So sometimes this game get really sweaty and like you're trying to maximize your profit and everything, but are you actually enjoying the process? After all, this is only a game. If you're maybe making a ton of currency but you're not enjoying it, why even bother, right? Alright, with all that being said, hope you have a wonderful league start. I'm really hyped about the league. There's so many changes coming up, so the end game looks totally different. I'm really hyped and I hope this will help you guide you through picking up the right league starter for you, as I said. If this was helpful to you, consider subscribing to the channel, and as always, take care guys.